Even though most people are skeptics, we all feel like there might be something out there. Some believe more than others, but just because it can't be seen doesn't mean it's not there. This happened to me when I was 14 or 15 years old in PTY, Republic of Panama. I had moved to that country and was living in an apartment with my parents and my maid. My sister was in college in the US, so it was just us. My maid gets the weekends off, so Saturdays and Sundays are just my parents and I. The apartment was rented and paid by my dad's company, so we didn't get to actually pick the place to live in, just sort of handed down to us after the person before us retired and my dad took over. This apartment was very eerie feeling. If you have your back faced towards the door, it almost always feels as if someone is behind you or staring at you. But once you turn around, there's nobody there. My mom felt the same way as well, and oftentimes when she took an afternoon nap, and if her back was facing the door, she would always wake up and feel uneasy and have to face the door. We don't take afternoon naps anymore because of this feeling. The bedrooms are set up where the first room you see is my parents', and then there's an L-shaped corridor, and at the end to the right was my bedroom, and the end was supposed to be my sister's bedroom, or guest room. Many times at night, I would hear footsteps of someone walking back from my parents' room to mine, so I'd sit up and look at the door waiting for either my mom or my dad to poke their heads in. We almost always left the doors open, but the footsteps would just stop at the end of my doorway, and my parents wouldn't be in sight. I'd get up from the bed and walk out in the corridor, and it'd be pitch black. Then I'd go to my parents' bedroom and find them fast asleep. This would always freak me out, and I'd end up sleeping on the couch in their room. This is how I slept most nights until I was 16. Pathetic, I know, but I just never felt safe in my room. I remember one night I had a terrible nightmare and couldn't sleep or be alone in the house for a really long period of time. It took me a really long time to get over my nightmare. My mom was a bit worried about me, but wanted to help me get over it. Eventually I did, and they felt a little bit safer leaving me at home by myself. One night on the weekend, my parents went out to eat and sing karaoke with their friends, leaving me alone at the apartment. I was in the living room watching Nickelodeon when I got up to get a drink. I was walking to the kitchen and the lights are off in there, but the door has a little glass rectangle, and since it was dark in the kitchen but lit where I was coming from, the little glass rectangle worked like a mirror. As I'm walking towards the kitchen, the living room being directly behind me and the sofa situated right in front of the kitchen table, I see a lady sitting at the end of the couch where I was just laying watching TV, with her legs crossed and staring at me with a very creepy smile. From her face, she looked Asian to me, but that could be because I'm Asian. But I remember her being super pale, with long black hair and wearing a long white dress. I immediately turned around to face the couch, but nobody was sitting there. Then I turned back to look at the kitchen glass, and nothing. Whoever was sitting on that couch had vanished in a matter of seconds. I turned off the TV, thinking maybe that could have caused a weird reflection onto the kitchen's glass or something, but the more I thought about it, the less sense it made because where the TV was situated and the angle. There's no way it could have caused a reflection like that. Plus, I'm pretty sure I was watching Rocko's Modern Life. So, a cartoon, not any humans. I was pretty much shitting my pants at this point and really creeped out. I turned off the living room light and ran. I immediately freaked out and didn't even bother to get a drink. I went directly to my parents' room, turned on the light, shut the bedroom door and locked it, turned on the walk-in closet light, shut the door, turned on the bathroom light, shut the door, turned on the AC, the TV in their bedroom and the computer, and called my parents, hoping they'd pick up so that they could come home sooner. They didn't pick up, so probably because the karaoke was so loud, and so I hopped on the internet. We used dial-up back then and started chatting with my friends on ICQ to keep me company. I eventually fell asleep in my parents' bed and woke up the next day with everything turned off and the door open. I went to look for my parents, and they were sleeping in my bedroom. I never told them this story in fear that they would never believe me until many years later. That's when my mom confirmed that she would often hear footsteps at night on the corridor, thinking it was me walking to their bedroom, but I was sleeping on their couch. So when she went to investigate to see if it was a burglar, the house was empty. We eventually moved out of that haunted apartment, bought a new apartment, and my dad started his own business. This happened when I was 17. I went to an international school, and there are plenty of international students who come and go, so goodbyes are a very common routine for my friends and I. One of my friends, who was a year older than me, Ani, decided to move back to her country, Hungary, and finish high school back home. She was leaving in a month. She planned a goodbye party where we'd go grocery shopping, then cook dinner together and watch a movie. I was of driving age at this point, and was one of the first to have a car amongst my friends, so I picked my friend Kat up to go to Ani's goodbye party. The apartment complex where she lived in is pretty new, and you go into a gated fence where there's a guard, and you let them know who you're seeing in which building and apartment. The guard then calls the person to confirm they're expecting company and lets you in. Once you drive in, you can park at the guest parking, and there are 3 buildings in that apartment complex. As I mentioned, the apartments are pretty new, so not all the floors were sold out, and how it works back then is if the floor is sold out, you can buy it, but if it hasn't been sold, then they'd cease construction on it until someone has decided to purchase that floor. Others could buy the floor before the apartment is even built, so that it's cheaper. Anyway, we go to her building, and there are 2 elevators in the lobby. My friends and I wait for one of the elevators to get us, and we get in and press floor 14. The elevator goes to the 6th floor, opens, nobody's out there, closes, and then goes to the lobby again, opens, and again nobody is there. Not thinking much of it, we press 14 again, and the elevator doors close and go up. Again, it went to the 6th floor and opened, nobody's there, closed, and all the way to the 14th floor. Kat was standing directly in front of the doors, as where I was a bit shielded behind where the buttons sit. And when we got to the 11th floor, she kind of gasped and stepped back. The floor was one of those unfinished floors that haven't been bought yet, so it was dark and all concrete. I told her that it was probably a kid playing around and pressing all the buttons on all the elevators, specifically knowing that the 11th is unfinished, just to scare someone. We finally made it to the 14th floor and rang Ani's doorbell. We greeted each other and all the other friends that were there at the door and stepped back to go grocery shopping. This time, it was the other elevator that came. Ani, her dad, and friends get off on the 4th floor, which is where the tenants' parking lots are, and Kat and I got off at the lobby to go to our car. When we got off the elevator, I looked back at the other elevator that gave us so much trouble, and there was an out-of-service sign on it. This was very weird because that sign wasn't there when we first hopped on the elevator, and it was like 7:30 at the time, so nobody was working. Trust me, in Panama, if something breaks or anything like that, you're screwed and have to wait until the next day so that someone can come fix it. So, Kat and I got bored grocery shopping, said our goodbyes to Ani, and left. I dropped Kat at her place and I drove home. I didn't want to stay too late anyway because the next day I was flying back to Taiwan with my parents, grandparents, and my aunt who came to visit. My story, unfortunately, doesn't end here though. When I got home that night, I went to sleep in my bedroom. My parents were sleeping in their room, my grandparents in the guest room, and my aunt slept next to me. When I was about to fall asleep, I felt this tingling feeling starting at my feet, almost as if my feet were asleep, and I felt it slowly rise up from my feet to my chest. I couldn't move at all. I tried so hard to get up or reach my aunt who was laying right next to me, but I couldn't. After struggling for what seemed forever, I finally gasped out loud and was able to move again. I thought maybe I was having a bad dream or something, so I decided to get up and get a glass of water as to break the sleep cycle, and not fall asleep again to the same dream. Once I got back in bed again, it happened once more. I felt the tingling feeling starting from my feet and rise up to my chest again, and I tried so hard, but I couldn't move. I I was so tired at this point that I decided to just give up and not fight it any longer, and I eventually fell asleep and woke up the next day. I told my mom that I didn't sleep very well, and she said that she heard noises coming from my room, and she walked in there expecting to find me on the phone or playing a video game secretly, but said that everyone was asleep and all was silent. We got ready to leave the house and was waiting for my dad to come home to pick us up, but he said that the traffic was so terrible where he was at that he'll just meet us at the airport. But he sent his friend to come pick us up. We rode with my dad's friend, and his car starts overheating and breaks down in the middle of the highway. My dad was already at the airport, waiting on us, and we were all just in a rush and a mess after all these occurrences. Lucky for us, there was a cab that was passing by on the highway and asked if we needed any help, assuming our car had broken down. We said we needed a ride to the airport, and he offered to take us, leaving my friend's dad behind since he wasn't traveling, and he called his friend to come pick him up. We finally made it to the airport and safe to the plane and arrived to Taiwan. Once we got situated and all that, I hopped on the laptop and got on MSN Messenger. I saw my friend Kat online and asked her how she slept after the visit to Annie's house. She said she slept very well and didn't have any problems. I believe that whatever it was at that elevator must have decided to follow me home and wanted to stay with me and not let me leave the country. I haven't had any problems since I got back from Taiwan.